On today's episode, Mike and Ryan discuss how to get into homebrewing on a tight budget. Cheers.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Brewthers-In-Law podcast, where beer is thicker than water. Join us on a journey discovering homebrewing, craft beer, and more. My name is Ryan, and with me, as always, is Mike. Mike, what is going on?
I'm just going to get it out of the way right here. Guinness. Cross it off your bingo card.
Today's episode is brought to you by Guinness. We're just going to get that out of the way now because we're talking nitro beers, and
you know it's going to come.
You know it's good. I mean, we have them poured already, so.
Yeah, you know it's going to come. I'm doing well, though. It's the weekend.
It is the weekend.
Happy day.
I know. I'd say not really, but for us it is because our
girl
jobs
just turned 3 yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah.
And my other girl, who's 1, just started walking.
I saw that.
It was a pretty big day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how
this one's birthday.
The video that you sent us was her walking, or Haley sent, was her walking to Haley. And it's like, took the steps and got to her. It's like, yeah. And then it just cut. You just hear the first, second of
she had to take her finger off of the record button to catch Abby as she kind of bailed into her. So she's at that stage right now where she's like, she gets it, she wants it, but she's like so. No, it's the opposite. She's been timid, probably ready, but not willing to try for a while. Now she wants it, and she gets so excited that she like a cartoon character. She moves faster than her feet can move, and she just tips right over.
Yes. Yeah. Those were the days.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, as we already told you by our sponsor for today's episode, we're going to be talking about nitronizing beer. So our first sip today, we're going to talk about obviously nitronizing, but what is something else besides beer that you know and love that is also nitronized?
I feel like you're sort of laying this one up for me by saying no and love. So there are 2 things I can think of that are made with nitrogen that aren't beer that I like. One is nitro coffee.
Yes, that's the one I knew you were going to say.
In the Michigan area in particular, Great Lakes Coffee makes excellent nitro coffee. But most places you can get it at Starbucks as well. And if you're going to have unflavored coffee from Starbucks, maybe getting it on nitro is the way to go because the regular coffee sucks. But the other one is nitrogen ice cream. And that, if you do,
what?
Have you never had this?
I have not had this.
So you can make flash frozen ice cream basically using liquid nitrogen. This is kind of a physics professor sort of trick to do. Our Dr. Scott Schneider at LTU during a lot of, I think it was Welcome Week or something. There was always a day when they were doing there was some sort of little mini fest in the arts and sciences building, and that's what he would do. He'd wheel out some liquid nitrogen and make some nitro. I'm
so intrigued.
It's pretty cool. Because you can basically make it instantaneously because liquid nitrogen is extraordinarily cold. Yeah. So it's a fun little science experiment that you should not do without proper equipment.
Yes.
Because it's real cold and you can hurt yourself if you don't have proper PPE.
I was about to say, I remember I had, it was one of those air horns. This was back in high school. We were at a football game. I had one in my pocket and it leaked. You can feel the cold come through. Yeah. And I actually had a little burn from it.
From the compressed gas.
Air. Yeah, it was this compressed air in there. So I can only imagine nitrogen.
Yeah. Well, when you push it far enough that it turns into a liquid, that's...
Yes.
Yeah. So how about you? You seem to have something.
I do have something
on board here.
I will say first, my favorite is nitro coffee. I think it's phenomenal. I usually do cold brew, just regular cold brew, but the nitro is also very, very good. Now, I have a fun one for us to try. So I saw this going around, and Pepsi is nitronizing their soda.
Nitro Pepsi, huh?
Nitro Pepsi.
I am very skeptical of this because I don't like flat pop.
We're about to try it live on air.
Soda, I suppose, for all of you non-Michigan people. But
So
I mean, okay, so it looks like it's maybe doing the Cascade thing. Maybe. It definitely is because it has that
it's
downward.
very quick.
Yeah, like the I mean the head on pop doesn't stick around as long, but actually, I mean that's a pretty nice foam cap for a pop.
Yeah,
and you could definitely see, Cascade gives you that like visual effect of it, like it almost looks like bubbles are moving downwards, kind of like a fan moving really fast. Looks like it's going backwards. It was doing that. That's pretty neat. The foam cap is way more impressive than I've ever seen for a pop. Like it's still
here.
It's still probably 3/4 of an inch. And normally for a pop, it's like gone immediately.
Yeah. Well, it smells like Pepsi.
It looks like Pepsi. Also, the lacing on the side of the glass is pretty cool.
Yeah. So it tastes like flat soda, pretty much, but it's creamier.
It does. Yeah, it's not my favorite thing in the world. It does mostly just taste like flat soda, but there's something to be said for it being creamy. I could see. Do you know? Okay.
I will say, comparing it to the Guinness, it's definitely not nearly as dark.
Random aside, do you know what it is like that makes cola taste like cola?
It's like it's some kind of mix of like caramel liquid and a couple other things, different flavorings and stuff like that to get the cola flavor. Because there is no longer cocaine in it, which is good for Coca-Cola.
Well, yeah. But this is Pepsi, right?
Yes, this is Pepsi, so we don't have to worry about that.
I'm curious, like if you took some of the sugar out of this, I actually think I'd like it more.
Well, the second ingredient is high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but I just like with it not being fizzy. Mm-hmm. I don't love like
and nitrogen is actually the last.
I don't love like Pepsi and Coke to begin with because most of the time I do find it too sweet. But like I think it's even more obvious when it's flat like this and kind of creamy. Mm-hmm. It's like sort of very sickly sweet. And I think if they scaled back the sugar and maybe made it more like to talk about the kombucha, for instance. Yeah, there are like versions of kombucha that are flavored like pops. So like you can get like
we talked about that.
Yeah, right. So like the cola kombucha is sort of like that, where it has those flavors but way less sugar. Mm-hmm. So the balance is totally different. I think this could work if they just scale back the sugar a little bit.
There is another. They do have a vanilla the creamy thing as well. And I thought that would have been too much. The vanilla, like I've had vanilla
like
Pepsi.
It would have been way sickly sweet. But on the other hand. Again, if they scale back the sugar a lot, maybe, but I don't know. Yeah, vanilla makes everything taste sweet, even if there's like no sugar in it. Mm-hmm. So interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be buying one.
No, I think it's a gimmick type thing. I saw when I was at Meijer today grocery shopping.
Nitrogen is so hot now.
Yeah, with one extra thing.
Yeah, there are now 4 things in the world made with nitrogen. Speaking of which, dear listener, if you know of anything else,
let us know.
Food or beverage that is made with.
I never would have thought food.
Gas or liquid nitrogen.
Blows my mind.
Yeah. Let us know because I would be curious about it.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have some quick listener feedback. As soon as my phone listens to me, going back. Again, to our Stone episode. Our Stone episode is, we had a lot of feedback from that one. This is on TikTok. It is from Blowing Smoke STL, St. Louis, I'm assuming. So he does a lot of like grilling and stuff like that. I do follow him. He's a good guy. He says I need to pick up some of their stuff as it's distributed down there now where he's at.
Oh, nice.
So
that's interesting. Like we've been able to get Stone for a while. So I guess I'd always just presumed you could get it anywhere, but it makes sense. Like most breweries work that way where like you can probably get them across the U.S., but that doesn't mean you can get them in every state, in every area because of distribution.
Yep. Well, it's like Yuengling right now. Yuengling, you can get it in certain parts of the country. Our state is still not part of that list. All right. One more we'll do. This is from a good friend of ours who we'll be talking to very soon, actually. Daniel McGar, who's with Turn by Turn Podcast. So he said to us, I think it was a typo, but my dad just asked me if in the Mandalorian, Mango Fett was a good guy. And then he tagged us and it said, Mango Fett could be a good name for a mixed drink or beer. And
I love that.
Yes.
Yes, it could.
I will make a mango beer for that.
Right, just 100%. To call it Mango Fett.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure someone already has done that.
I haven't seen it. You're right. Probably someone I've seen Mango Unchained, which is another.
Mango Unchained.
That's pretty clever too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mango Fett's a great one.
That is a great one.
All right. Well, Ryan's next great beer has already been named. Thank you, Daniel.
Exactly. And now you got to make the design for it.
Yeah. Now I do. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to toss this over to you now. You have the little bit of a nitro knowledge than I do, except I drink it more than anything, which is a Guinness again. So I'm going to hand it over. Take it away.
Okay. So I'm gonna throw it. You go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep drinking my Guinness, except that it's gone, alas. It wasn't a full Guinness. Don't worry, dear listener. So if I'm actually going to throw this right back at you, if you had to guess the year that nitro, the idea of nitrogenizing beer was invented, and guess the city it was invented in. I bet you'll at least get one of them.
I'm going to assume the city is Dublin.
That is correct.
It's Guinness and everything. How far back would it have been? I would say, it's tricky. I'm going to say 1800s. And that, I know it's a very broad range, but I'm going to say 1850s.
You are wrong by 100 years. It's 1951.
Oh, okay.
A lot, right?
Yeah.
That I would have guessed exactly as you. I would have thought a lot further back.
Yeah.
Than that. I suppose there was probably hand pulls before then, right?
I would assume, yeah.
But okay, so this is coming from AmericanCraftBeer.com. So credit to my source. But so apparently a mathematician named Michael Ash, who had been hired by Guinness,
Math saves the world.
In 1951. Yeah. So apparently at this time, the drought beer process in Ireland was finicky and fairly unstable. So I don't really claim to know what sorts of technology they had for storing compressed gas and whatnot, but basically they were having issues with using CO2.
Okay.
So this mathematician, Michael Ash, came up with the nitrogen process. So according to a book by Jeff Allworth called The Man Who Invented Guinness, which I kind of want to read now, this is the quote. Nitrogen, being stable and inert, seemed to be a perfect dispensing gas. Once the technical hurdles were overcome, it was a massive success. As Allworth noted, the process revolutionized Guinness and Irish Stout, which is fair to say, right?
Agreed, yeah.
Not only
I wonder what
Guinness,
it tastes like before.
I don't know. From the sound of it, they probably just had really inconsistently carbonated beer right before. Mm-hmm. But I think prior to that, pretty much everywhere you would have relatively flat beer. Gross. With the hand pull out of a keg. Yeah. You're going to get fairly flat beer with only, you can't pressurize the chamber very much. So you just have the dissolved CO2, the little bit that's left over from fermentation, basically. That would be my assumption.
Yeah.
But I'm maybe somebody with a little bit more of an acumen in beer history could answer that question in the comments.
Yes.
I love this. This is so great. So until the 1980s, nitro beers were only available on draft, but Guinness in the 1980s revolutionized the industry again by inventing their widget that dispenses nitrogen into cans and bottles.
Yep, I remember that.
I find it works way better in cans.
Yes,
personally.
Agree 100%.
I don't feel like you get the real Guinness experience out of a bottle, but so this is the best part. The widget which allowed for the nitro experience at home was in 2004 voted the greatest invention of the last 40 years in the UK, with the second being the internet.
Are they wrong? Are they wrong?
I don't think so. I don't think they're wrong.
No, I don't. Is it England or is it Ireland or is it just the UK?
The UK is what this says.
That makes sense. I will agree.
It says the internet came in a distant second.
A distant second. Not even a close second. Oh.
Hey, as time progresses, I'm inclined to agree with them.
The internet does get darker and darker.
It gets darker and darker. But, so apparently a commercially available outside of a brewery version of a nitro beer didn't hit America until, would you like to guess this year?
I'm going to say the 90s. I'm going to say 1990s.
That's pretty decently close, but it's 2011.
What?
Again, according to this source, right? I haven't verified this with journalistic integrity.
Okay, I'm about to say we're not reporting
it's the first commercially available nitro beer in America, or made in America, was Left Hand Brewing's Nitro Milk Stout, which is a great beer.
It is. It is a very, very good beer.
That's probably my favorite. I've had relatively few nitro beers all in all, but that's probably my second favorite.
Yeah, I can agree.
And it's the only good use of lactose I think I've ever had in a beer.
Short and stout. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're right. Yes. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I don't put too much in there though. I put a very small amount.
Imagine short and stout on nitro though.
I'm gonna test it. We're gonna do that this year.
That for reference is a stout that Ryan makes, which includes English breakfast tea or Irish breakfast tea?
Irish breakfast
tea. But okay, so somehow they manage the nitrogen effect without a widget. I don't know how that works, but apparently also famously, Samuel Adams now offers one, and Firestone Walker in California also has a relatively well-known version of a nitro beer, which I've never had because we can't get their beers here.
So hold on. So you said Left Hand. They do cans or bottles, but they don't
nitro milk stout.
Yeah, but they don't use a widget?
Apparently not.
I'm intrigued.
How they get the same effect. I have no idea.
Because
maybe we'll look it up on the break.
I was going to get this for you as a Christmas gift, but it was not possible because you do nitronize, as we'll get to later. But I wanted to buy you stuff that you could bottle or can, nitro then you beer. Get and then put the widget in there and everything. For you, but
you can't buy.
I couldn't find widgets. Anything. Yeah. Guinness, I think it was only
Guinness
cans.
has a stranglehold on the technology.
It was mostly cans, but obviously we're very small. You have to buy a canner and then everything else, and I feel like that's more work on you.
Yeah, you're right. Well, okay, so so that's sort of the history. Now, you will often see on beer home brewing websites, home brewing, but not blogs, message boards.
Yeah.
People saying essentially there's no point to nitrogenize, just lower carb it. If you want nitrogenized beer is flat beer is basically their contention, because it's true, the nitrogen doesn't stay in the beer, it comes out, and when it comes out it brings a lot of CO2 out with it. So it's true to say that nitrogenized beer is relatively flat. There's a lot less gas in it once you've poured it. With that said, I strongly disagree. I feel like there is absolutely a reason to nitrogenize and a unique effect you can't get another way. How do you feel?
I honestly agree, because I was curious before we started recording or came to do this episode, as Layla, your dog, is trying to get up in my business here. I looked up beers that, styles in general that can be nitronized, and there's a couple of them. There's actually not that many styles that really are nitronized regularly, but I was looking at some of the beers that they named as your top nitro beers, and I was trying to think what would a Guinness taste like without the nitro? What was it before they nitronized and everything? If you just carved it,
right, what would it
really taste like? And so I think nitronizing your beer does bring a different flavor profile. It brings out even as Pepsi. Pepsi brought out a little more creaminess and sweetness that you didn't like, but in a regular Pepsi, it's not that sweet. It's sweeter than Coke, but I bet you if Coke really did one, it'd be a little better. But
that's an interesting way to look at it, because it did. Granted, Pop's oversweetened to begin with, but it did bring out
a little more sweetness.
Yeah, rather than just saying, oh, well, this doesn't work because the Pop's too sweet, we can say instead, well, this brought out different qualities. It brought out the sugar a lot more. Yes. It brought out the... I definitely felt like I got a greater sense of the kind of spices or whatever, the kind of cola, essential cola flavor is.
It brings it more forward.
Yeah.
Because you're not fighting with the carbonation. It's I could not care less if I got Pepsi or Coke. I know some people will fight over which one you get, especially down south. But I will say that the big difference between the two is a stronger carbonation with Coke and a little more sweeter with the Pepsi. But with that nitro in there, you get a little bit more of the flavor, a little more of that caramelness flavor coming out with it. It
definitely did taste a lot more like lusciously caramely.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my feeling is that I'm sorry, we're recording in my house today.
Yes, we are.
I have a dog who is a brat. So my contention is this. I agree to an extent that nitrogen beer is just flat beer, but the foam cap, I think, to me is the key in the nitro experience. And I've had as you said, we've made nitrogen beers. We now have on tap our like third nitrogen beer that that we've made at the house, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But I've had pours that have the foam cap, a nice foam cap and that nice cascade, and pours that don't. And I find them to be a completely different drinking experience. Similarly with coffee, I have gotten nitro coffee on draft, and then I've like carried it back to work, and the foam cap goes away, and it just tastes like cold brew. Whereas if you drink it with the foam cap, it's a different experience. So I think to me that creamy foam is key to the nitro experience, and to me it's basically the whole point.
Yeah.
Like I think it changes the drinking experience like massively. So we are going to test that right now. So I have a stout on draft right now called we call it Second Born Stout. We brew it in honor of my second born daughter every year, and it is a dry Irish style stout. Made kind of like Guinness, though we use some other dark malts in addition to roasted barley to try and bring out a bit more chocolate character, whereas Guinness is largely more of a coffee character. Ours is sort of, we're aiming for a blend of chocolate and coffee. So we, I bottled some, which obviously means carbonation. And this was bottled we used enough priming sugar to achieve sort of British / like UK rates of carbonation, although it's quite foamy, so maybe we did that unsuccessfully.
I think of the foam actually from, because we're using the same glass that just had Guinness in them.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we're going to try real quick. We're going to try basically what I would consider the base version of this beer, which would be the carbonated version. And then we will try some on draft. So first of all, Ryan, if you just want to maybe give a quick description of the beer. Mostly it looks
black as my heart, pretty black, but I mean, it looks like Guinness.
It definitely doesn't taste. It tastes less carbonated than a typical beer to me.
It's
so
definitely.
I think we achieved that.
Yeah, I think you get a little more of the like malty coffee flavor coming out of it. A little bit more, like it's a little more earthy. Is probably the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, maybe that's some of the hop flavor coming through.
The hop flavor coming through. But your grains, like I think with the grains, like I think you use obviously a dark roast of some sort. Yeah. But like I could, it smells like Guinness, honestly. It's just like maybe not slightly as like soft, like it's a little bit harsher. Yeah. It's again like comparing kind of Coke to Pepsi, where like it's got a little more of a harshness to it, but not like pushes you away harshness.
No, it's interesting you use that word. I was trying to find the right word to describe what I was tasting, and I was going to use the word spiky. Like Spiky's I good. Can almost like take, even though it is relatively less carbonated. Mm-hmm. And to be sure, this is probably more carbonated than like a nitro beer, because even though it's on the lower end, there's no nitrogen kicking stuff out. That's a good idea. I'll spin it around a little bit to kick a little bit more of the CO2 out. I can like really feel the sensation of like the CO2 kind of like popping on the roof of my mouth. And like it's partially because I've had a lot of this beer already in its other form. But like that carbonation mixes almost weirdly for me with some of the flavors in the beer, because unlike a stronger stout, Irish stout has such muted, it's so low ABV and like relatively easy going that like there aren't big flavors like you would get in an American porter and an American stout. And so like the relatively muted flavors plus the dark flavors plus the carbonation to me is just a little bit weird, honestly. And I would agree with you. I get minimal chocolate here and mostly coffee, I guess, but
it's like a bitteriness of coffee, like that bitterness of coffee.
Well, that's another interesting thing. And you said earthy is like a common thing with nitro and or flat beer. You know, like I try all of our beers as we're kegging them.
Yeah.
So they're like relatively uncarbonated. Yeah. And our hoppy beers, it's interesting, kind of they don't taste very good flat.
No, yeah.
We're gonna try. We're gonna put that to the test later with a little experiment after the break. But like hoppy beers, really like hop flavors and hop sensations, I find come through a lot better at higher carbonation rates. So it makes sense that like maybe those flavors are coming through more. So you're getting more bitterness, but also you're getting those earthy flavors from like because we use Fuggles and EKG in this.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually what I use in my stout.
Is it really?
Yeah. I think I might use one more.
They're classics.
Yeah. I think I love Fuggle. Fuggle is one of my favorite. Fuggle?
I think it's actually Fuggle.
I always said Fuggle.
I don't know. One thing I learned that it's like this is such a Michigan thing to say, but it's like the store is Meyer. It's not Myers.
You didn't know this? I do.
I
know this, but accepted.
Everybody gets it wrong. But what I always got wrong is, to me, it was Fuggles with an S. And it's not. It's just Fuggle.
Oh, you Michiganders.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So
Ryan now is going to pour some. He's going to pour some Second Born on draft, and I'm going to take the opportunity here to just talk a little bit about my draft setup. So if you would like to, if you homebrew and or you have a kegerator that you buy kegged beer with, and you would like to set up nitro, here's what you have to do. One, you need to be cognizant of the fact that nitrogen gas can come in a canister with the a different setup, like a different adapter, where basically the male and female ends are flip-flopped so that you don't accidentally switch them, I guess. That's apparently how it used to be done. So you might need to get a specific special nitrogen regulator. Now,
I poured you too much.
For me, beautiful Cascade though. Thank you. Now for me, I get my gas from a local liquor store, Wine Barrel Plus in Livonia. Great store if you're in the area. But there, I'm able to get nitrogen in a CO2 style, like canister, basically. So I can use it with my normal regulator. But just be aware of that. You might need to get a different regulator if you're just going to, depending on where you get your nitro gas from. I would suggest you find a local liquor store or brewery that will sell you CO2, or your local beer store, and ask them if they also do nitro. Okay? So that's one thing to note. The other thing to note is that you need something called a stout spout.
I noticed that it does kick back a little bit. So so you need a stout spout. I'll talk a little bit more about that after we try these beers. Ryan, why don't you take a pull while I finish this? I will take
and then the other thing you need to keep in mind is you can buy springs to spring load your taps so that they automatically shut with a little more force.
I'm assuming that's what you have.
Yes, okay. And you need to run nitrogen gas at roughly 2 to 3 times the PSI of carbonation. So roughly 2 to 3 times the pressure.
Okay.
And we'll discuss why that is. But because of that, the taps tend to be very leaky. So you want to install that spring to auto close the tap because the higher pressure is going to want to leak out. All right. So Ryan, great pours. There's about probably 1.5 centimeters, maybe half an inch or something.
British?
Beautiful foam cap.
Centimeters.
I'm a scientist. We do centimeters sometimes. Beautiful foam cap. There was a really nice Cascade. What's your impression of the flavor?
It's creamier. It's lighter. That flavor that I was talking about before, like that earthiness and that coffee roast flavor is not. It's there. It's just not in your face,
to me,
lingering in your tongue.
Different. It's like it's the difference between a more aggressive coffee roast, something like a Sumatra or whatever, where it's big coffee flavor, and or just more bitter coffee, maybe drip coffee versus getting a fancy pour over where a lot of the bitterness is gone.
Yeah.
We still get a lot of those flavors, but it's a different experience.
It's still there. It is turn the volume down just a little bit on it. So if we were comparing it on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 3 or 4 of those flavors.
Yeah.
While the carbonation was more like an 8.
Yeah.
or maybe even a 9, where like it was definitely there and it lingered too.
Now, do you just experience it as creamier and like less flavor, or do you find that other flavors come through to sort of replace that coffee
I do get a
sensation?
little more chocolate actually, and with the nitro.
I do too.
The creaminess I think brings out the chocolate, and that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I've heard like vanilla talked about in the same terms, where it's like if you're making a chocolate beer.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're trying to bring flavors out, vanilla brings other flavors out, particularly sweeter flavors. So like chocolate isn't sweet per se, but we think of it as being sweet because of like chocolate bars.
Yeah.
So if you add vanilla, like that chocolate pops. And I feel like the nitrogen does the same thing. Mm-hmm. I also get a little bit of an almost like a fruitiness on the back. And I think it's a little bit in my head because I just know that the Imperial Darkness, which is the yeast we use for this, it's purported to be the Guinness strain, is supposed to have a little bit of like a fruitiness like most English yeast do.
Yeah.
And I just always feel like I can taste it in beers made with darkness. I find it really pleasant and nice and almost like a light, something close to like a cherry or something.
I can see that. Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, I may just be tasting what I'm looking for.
It happens. It's all subjective.
Yeah. So the other thing to note, it's especially true on your glass. Apparently your glass is a little cleaner, but like the lacing is totally different with the nitro.
Yeah.
Like you get these thick lines of every drink you've taken, and it
because it falls with it.
That doesn't affect the flavor.
No.
But like it is, to me, it's a really nice aesthetic thing. I love when like the lacing on the glass looks. You can like count your drinks.
See, it's funny you say that because like on the opposite, whenever I do see that, I rotate my glass so I then.
Oh, you do to use it up? Okay, no, yeah. I make a point to always drink out of the same side so that I can have that like.
Oh, okay, you can do that
sort of history of my pint. So yeah, so it's so interesting. So it does seem like there's something to it, and again, for the record, like. We've both been sipping this for a while now. My foam cap's still at about 1 centimeter.
Mine is.
Yours is actually even bigger.
Well, no, because it's hard to tell.
It's similar, actually. Maybe
inch.
Similar.
We're in America, half inch.
Right. 2 men on a podcast comparing lengths.
That's our next episode.
So yeah, but to me, I would firmly believe that this is a different experience. And again, I would contend it's the foam cap. So I sort of went through what you need in order to do nitro at home. Now we're going to just briefly explain kind of why, at least to my understanding, that works. I have tried to look this up on the internet a couple times and had trouble getting a real explanation, but this is my understanding.
That's why it was in second place, because it didn't get you the answer you wanted.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If the internet can't even explain nitro beer, how is it better than something that makes nitro beer?
Exactly.
Okay, so beer gas or Guinness gas is typically what this mix will be called. And it is a mix. It's 75% nitrogen, 25% CO2 or thereabouts. Shh. Come. Okay. So typically, you would carbonate at, say, 10 to 12 psi. Possibly even lower for like UK beers. Nitrogen, typically it's recommended 25 to 30 psi. So again, we're looking at, depending on how you count it, 2 to 3 times the pressure. Okay. Yeah. So you figure you're using 25% of the CO2, but 2 to 3 times the pressure. So that would theoretically still create a fairly carbonated beer, even though there's all that nitrogen in there, just because the pressure is so high. But also, if you tried to serve that out of a normal tap, it would blast out like a rocket, and you would have a mess. So you restrict the flow with something called a stout spout. So a stout spout is something you kind of screw into your tap, and it makes the tap a little longer, and it includes this restrictor plate, which is like a hunk of metal with a bunch of like, it's like a slab of metal with holes in it.
Okay.
So it basically pushes the beer through these holes and it creates resistance to slow down the pour.
Okay.
That also though sort of creates, you can imagine that like forcing beer through those like small holes probably helps release some of the gas on its way out as well. Right?
I would assume, yeah.
Like imagine like putting your finger over a garden hose and like what that does. It
or even
makes
like
the flow a lot more
sink.
viscous coming out.
You get a filter on a sink coming out.
That slows down, right?
It slows it down compared to I'm covered in dog hair.
Oh, is that dog hair? Okay,
that is dog
it looks like smoke coming off your finger. So then that I think partially results in the decarbonation, and then also the nitrogen gas leaves solution readily. Nitrogen doesn't like to be dissolved in liquid, so it comes out, and as it does, the movement of those molecules, it kicks some of the CO2 out with it. And I think that sort of weird mixture is why that cascade effect, since you have kind of two different gases mixing with each other and also leaving, that creates that famous cascade.
Interesting. Okay.
That's my hypothesis about it.
I'll go with it.
I think a combination of the nitrogen gas leaving and bringing CO2 out, plus the restrictor plate creating, maybe a bit more of a viscous flow, is what creates that really creamy foam.
Yeah.
Where like there's all this mixing happening at the top, and it creates this really fine layer of foam. And then again, as I said, I would contend that the creamy foam is like basically the whole point of using nitrogen. And because like I found that when you don't have it, you mostly just have something that does taste like flat beer, and it misses that creaminess.
Yeah, because I will say the Pepsi that we had, the head is pretty much gone. There's a little tiny bit there, but you can definitely tell there's more carbonation in it.
Yeah.
Than the nitro. I think the ratio might be different compared to.
So that's, I guess, one last thing to note if you want to do this at home is because you're using 2 to 3 times the like pressure, and because of like just the relative. I'll be honest, I don't truly exactly understand why this is, but like you will only get maybe 2 kegs out of a canister of nitro gas, like 5 pounds of compressed nitrogen or beer gas, whereas you can get way more than that out of a thing of CO2.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like probably at least 10 kegs, right? Would you think, if you have no leaks? So, and you're not using it for anything but serving.
Yeah.
So just know that it's going to be kind of expensive. To me, it's very worth it. We keep our nitrogen tap in a separate mini fridge so that we don't take up our carbonation taps.
Yeah, you guys. I'm about to say you guys all have a nice setup.
Yeah,
with the beers
I just like Guinness is Haley's favorite beer. Guinness is one of my favorite beers.
Mm-hmm.
We like having something like it on tap, and it for us was definitely a good investment. And at my liquor store at Wine Barrel Plus, I can trade out like an empty nitrogen for a CO2 and then go back because they both come from the same sort of container. So yeah, those are just some things to keep in mind. It's not that hard to do at home. It might sound a little intimidating. It's really not bad.
You just need to have the right equipment.
You just need the right equipment,
which is with brewing in general. It's just like having the equipment to do it. So like if you like, we talked about it on a previous episode with our brewing on a budget. Like you can do brewing pretty cheaply, but if you want to spend the money to get a little extra, you can get a mini fridge turned into a kegerator.
Right.
You can get the CO2 and do all that way. Or you can bottle it, whichever way you want to do. If you want to spend a little extra money, you can get the nitro kit. You can do all this stuff and everything. Right. So like I think it comes down to what you, if you have the money.
Just what does it for you?
I'm about to say what you had the money for, what your wife will allow you to spend on.
Or husband.
Or husband. What they will allow you to spend money on. So I get it because like, I know I'm not quite a lot spending a lot of money. Like I'll be like, hey, I just bought all my ingredients for beer, and then wife's like, how much you just boom?
Right. Gotta go.
I did actually just buy everything for the dude to brew this year.
Very good.
Full 5-gallon batch.
We've done an episode on the dude.
We did,
right?
yeah.
So astute listeners will know what that is.
But $80, I think, and I was also buying more Sanny. I was out of Sanny, and then more,
which is more expensive than you'd think it would.
Yeah, it is. I think that was actually the most expensive thing I bought.
Yeah, I mean it lasts a long time, but
yes.
Yeah. That reminds me. One other thing, you were talking about equipment. I went through probably 3 to 4 tanks of nitrogen gas before I fixed all the leaks in my system because I built a new second gas line, and at those pressures, you just really need to have all sources of leaks removed.
Yeah.
And a trick to use is just get a spray bottle and put some diluted dish soap in it, and then spray it on all of the different possible leak spots in your system and look for bubbles.
See, I tried that once because I ended up having to redo my whole gas line on my kegerator because I had a leak somewhere and I could not figure it out. And I was using that technique, couldn't find it. So I just replaced the whole gas line system.
So actually the Mark, wow, this is turning into a commercial for Wine Barrel Plus, not for Guinness. But Mark, the guy at Wine Barrel Plus gave me a tip with this. He said, because what I was doing was turning the PSI on, but not like crazy high and looking for leaks. He said you want it like cranked up to 40 or 50. Turn it all the way up.
That makes sense.
So that then now maybe, like obviously you want it disconnected from beer and stuff when you do this, but like any holes will be way easier to find at way high pressures because like it'll escape so much faster that it'll bubble more readily.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just maybe one pro tip if you think you have a leak. Like crank the pressure up really high and then check all the spots on your lines. And that was how I found my leaks.
Well, the only place you miss then is at the connector point to the keg if you don't want to get
that's
in there.
True.
So that's the one place. But I think that's where mine was.
But what you could do, if it's a problem in the line side of that, well, still you could just spray the gas in your like ball lock or your pin lock and look for leaks there. Yeah. And then you could. Well, you're right, because you don't really want to pressurize a keg to like 50 psi.
Yeah, no,
but what you can do with a keg is just you can pressurize it safely to like 30 if you are worried you have a leak in your keg. And then you can just spray the.
I have an extra keg that's my Sani solution, so when I clean my lines, when I change out beers and everything, I can just use that.
That's a good idea as a place to keep Sani. Because when I keep it in a bucket, it gets cloudy real fast. I'm not sure why, but then I feel like
I filled it up. I didn't fill it like it's a 5-gallon smooth. It's a 5-gallon keg that I have an extra one of. So like I fill it halfway with Sani water and I don't keep pressure in it at all times. Yeah. But then I shake it up, get everything moved, and then put it in, run it real quick. And that between lines, especially since I just changed from a porter to a cream ale, so definitely had to flush all that out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we actually just we put on a carbonated water, like essentially a San Pellegrino cone, and I neglected to run brewing wash through the line, and I did this last time, and it just means that the first like 10 pulls are gonna just taste kind of like really diluted beer. It is what it is.
It's you trying to give yourself subliminal message that you want a beer, not this.
I want a beer, yeah. But anyway, let's leave it at that. Yeah. And so after the break, what we are going to do, we're going to pull back out the nitrogen syringe trick that we established from Myth Brewsters Part 1. And we are going to just try to mimic the nitro effect in a range of different beers and just kind of see what sort of potential nitrogenation would have in styles other than stout, which is obviously by far the most common use of
Do you have our selection of beers already? I'm intrigued.
I do.
And I don't know what they are. I'm so excited for this.
Yes. Waiting for that until after the break.
Cheers.
Welcome to our new podcast. Welcome to our new podcast.
This isn't working.
Agreed. I think we're going to have to do it turn by turn.
Well, now that you mention it, we are a brand new RPG video game podcast.
Our very existence hinges on turn-based gaming.
So join us on the Turn by Turn podcast, where we'll be talking about
Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Golden Sun, Shining Force, Mother, and so many more.
It's your turn to come and join us.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from the Studio Demands It podcast,
where every episode we take a demand from a hypothetical studio,
which could be you,
and challenge ourselves to conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film based on the stipulations
or the demands
we are given. We talk about movies all the time. Particularly, we complain about the choices made in the films we've seen.
We're nerds like that.
And, of course, like any good nerd does, we automatically assume that we could do better.
Even with the demands and restrictions that clearly must have been put on by a production.
So head on over to studiodemandsit.com and listen to our previous library of previous episodes. Our precious library, Jim. Our library of precious episodes.
You're a pirate, Smeagol.
Okay, so head on over to studiodemands.com to listen to our library of episodes.
And submit your demand for a future episode, too.
So go do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, end of ad.
And we're back. We've had a few beers.
We're probably gonna have to
quite a
keep
few
that.
Guinness.
No, we haven't.
Oh,
We've had one.
well, yeah, I guess it's true. So we are back. So we are going to experiment. We talked about the experiment that we did with Myth Boosters back in season 1 using a syringe. Mike has explained the process to me again, so I know how to do it. So you have a collection of beers, and you have poured already for me as well.
Yes.
And we're going to try this.
So we're going to try beers of kind of different character to see what sorts of characteristics lend well to nitro. So what I'm thinking we do is we each take a quick sip of the beer and get our initial impressions of the sort of carbonated version.
Okay.
Then we use the syringe trick to quote unquote nitrogenize it. And then we compare the differences. So
So one thing I do want to say is smell is probably a key thing because there is a change in smell for me when I comparing the
really, okay.
the second born and for,
so this beer here is it's home brew. It's our homemade firstborn amber ale.
okay, so similar to what was it? It was Anchorage.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, I know you originally
we did like Alaskan amber kind of the first time.
That's
We've changed it to be more. This is more like an American pale ale recipe. So
Gotcha.
There are some. We use like caramel malt, biscuit malt, a teensy bit of pale chocolate.
Gotcha.
I would say it has a pretty typical amber ale color.
Yep. Pretty see-through.
We hop it with Amarillo and what's the other one that we Willamette. So Willamette is the hop used in Fat Tire. It's fairly mild.
Ooh, I can see why.
Amarillo is more citrusy and is kind of Amarillo is often described as being orangey, and we were thinking like orange biscuit. That sounds good. And so it's not exactly, the beer's not supposed to taste like that per se, but we thought those would be nice flavors in an amber ale.
Yeah, so
sip time.
Yeah, that's an American amber right there.
Yeah.
Nothing too fancy. It's but good flavor coming through. I love it.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I had this one. All right.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. So we're going to do the syringe trick. Now, to just briefly reiterate from that episode, basically you get like a little like kid medicine syringe. You pull up a couple milliliters of beer into it and then some air. Then you stick the syringe down into the beer, plunge it quickly, and it should, oh yeah, baby.
Oh yeah, look at that go.
So it should create a lot of foam, but you should see a cascade and you should hopefully end up with foam kind of approaching the nitrogen effect. So you're kind of mimicking it by
definitely getting the cascade.
One, you're flattening the beer, so it's kind of a foamy thing to do. Make sure there's room. Make sure there's room in your glass.
Yes, it will.
We both have like small pores and got like over an inch of head. Ryan got like probably going on 2 inches of head because his syringe is bigger than mine. It's not a competition. You're right about the smell. It even smells a little creamy.
Yeah, I would say the smell is it's lesser what it is.
Funny, let's get your impressions first.
So, again, I have to keep going back to this Coke versus Pepsi thing where, like, in the first one, like, you had a lot of flavors going in. It's not over the top, but, like, you can definitely know it's there. And then when you get to Pepsi, it's more of a mellow carbonation and, like, a little, like, I wouldn't say this isn't sweeter, but, like, you get a little more different flavor profile to it.
Well, actually, yeah, I was going to say, I almost get like I was taking a sip as you were saying Pepsi, and I could taste the kind of caramel.
Yes.
Like I think the caramel comes through really strongly.
I think getting rid of the carbonation brings out that
in the nitrogenized version. But interestingly, carbonation is, or nitrogenation / flattening, as we've said, is supposed to kind of mute hop flavors. I do get a little more hop flavor. I get orange like pretty distinctively, or at least some sort of, fruity,
citrusy,
whether it's fruity esters or fruity hop flavors. Like I get something quite distinctly at the end that I actually thought was harder to taste in the carbonation version, which is sort of the opposite of what they say will happen.
Yeah, I definitely get like a citrus, like a sweet citrus. So like more of an orange than a lemon.
Yeah.
Definitely not a grapefruit, but like more of that sweet.
Maybe like a mandarin orange or something
like a mandarin.
that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually pretty darn good.
You get to do this next time.
I don't hate this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't hate this. Maybe we'll do a double batch and
or just do
serve it two ways.
one batch and do I was gonna say do one batch and do it 2 ways.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we could just kind of keg it into half and half or bottle half of it or something.
Yeah. Which is what we're thinking about doing with the short and stout.
Oh, okay,
giving you some of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the plan. Let's give you half of it. So
please do.
Uh-huh.
To nitro it?
Yeah, nitro it.
Oh, okay. That sounds beautiful and wonderful, and I love it.
Yeah, I have his foam left.
Yeah, I'm trying to like get rid of the foam at the bottom of my glass. Okay,
I'll rinse our glasses.
That's an amber ale. Now, again, an American amber ale. We sort of do in terms of IBU, and we didn't dry hop it or anything, but like we definitely sort of intend this beer to be firmly American, capital A. So like hoppy, like with hop flavors kind of being more prominent than you might see in some other amber ales. So, but nonetheless, I would call this sort of a malty beer, but not dark malty.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we are going to try a hoppy beer. So we have Three Floyd's Alpha King here. Now, again, I'm curious about this because it seems like just a bad idea. Like, normally you want high carbonation for hops, particularly if it's not like maybe a New England IPA could take it. I know that Ryan brought up he was a little disappointed I didn't have one.
I haven't seen what you got in there. Okay,
I don't have a New England IPA. I don't have one.
You do not have any here at home?
No, I don't think so. I can check like the back of our fridge, but I'm pretty sure we don't have one. And like a New England IPA that you find in the back of the fridge is maybe not the New England IPA you want.
This is not the IPA you were looking for.
Right, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay. So whiff of it, definitely an IPA. Definitely smell the hops. The citra, I wouldn't say citra, but like piney, citrus.
I mean, it might be. They do love citra.
Yeah. All right. So you got your sip?
There's definitely still some malt in there, but yeah, like the flavor is dominated. It's well balanced, obviously. It's a great beer, but it is definitely prominent, like fruity hop flavors are what I'm picking up. And a fairly aggressive bitterness too. And I'm a little nervous about how that's gonna transition into its nitrogen form. Right. This isn't even my final form.
I know, right? I have no beer.
Well, it's probably all the like hop compounds because I know like did you ever notice filling up kegs of Dragon Mead that whenever you fill up you would fill up like a hoppy beer, like whenever we did Crown it was always
I've actually never filled up a keg there. I always just ordered it. And like they just always had it for me. Yeah, I think a couple times
that's what we do now. That's what we do now. But yeah, like back in the day, I used to just do it myself. And I always had trouble getting the Crown kegs full. Crown Jewels is a Dragon Mead American IPA. Mm-hmm. It was so much foamier than the others. Yeah, and I think there is just like I think that's kind of a known thing that hop compounds will.
So I will say right off the bat, smell is less intense hops.
Like I feel like some of the like. Whatever malts they use.
It's almost sweet hops. Like I don't know if you get that.
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm getting more malt and I'm getting the hop fruitiness, but the more like quintessential hoppy flavors, like
West Coast style,
the kind of pine, and
West Coast style.
All of those hops. Sort of more like vegetal, for lack of a better term, like sort of qualities are diminished.
It's very different. It's creamy.
Yeah,
going with everything.
I don't know if I like it.
I don't know if I do either.
I don't know that I like that. It is like it's interesting. I also feel like this one did a poorer job of mimicking the sensation. Like the foam doesn't taste creamy to me. There's like enough bitterness from the hops that like that foam still tastes spiky, to use that word again. Like it does not taste it. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I still get the very intense amount of hops, but it's adding a creaminess to those hops, and I don't know.
It's a weird combination.
It is a very weird combination. Yeah.
So, did you remember?
Like
did you ever get to have the Nitro Blonde Ale that Haley and I made? We called it Library Blonde. Mm-hmm. The first couple weeks that beer was on tap. Mm-hmm. And we didn't use much hops. Like it was in a 5-gallon batch. We used an ounce of Crystal, which is not particularly pungent hop. Yeah. We used an ounce of Crystal as a first word hop and an ounce of Crystal like at 15 minutes.
Okay.
And this beer had this weird like Crystal isn't like known for being very fruity, but this beer like had these like fruity hop flavors and this general just sense of hoppiness that was really unpleasant mixed with being served on nitro. Like it was gross.
Yeah.
I did not like it. I was ready to dump it, but like after a couple weeks, it really mellowed out.
Okay.
And then it was fine. And it was like, it was a decent beer. I think we would completely lose the late hop from it next time. We would just use bittering hops probably to avoid that. But like still, it was weird that like, I'm sure if we carbonated that beer, it wouldn't have tasted hoppy at all. Because we didn't use much and we used very low, kind of low flavor hops and not really prominent, like strong hops. But it was just weird how like nitrogen both brought it out and clashed with it at the same time. And that's kind of what I'm getting here.
I think what we're seeing is, so like comparing, like when we did Second Born, when we did it without the nitro, you got a lot of the malt flavor with it. The hops were there, but you got a lot of the malt flavors that gave it that coffee, that gave it that roast flavor. And when you did the nitro version of it, that flavor kind of went away a little bit and got masked by the creaminess. And then the hops kind of came in a little more stronger if they're there. So like in Second Born, you said you use Fugel and you use East Kent, right?
Yeah.
Those flavors aren't super intense. So there isn't really much to really ground to gain for those ones. In this beer, those hops, which are probably Citra or some other West Coast hop, is a very strong flavor. So you killed that malt a little bit that they used to balance those hops. And that hop flavor now has all this room to go with, along with the creaminess. It's there now, more intense, and I do agree with you.
Well, so that's interesting because for me, I don't know that I taste less malt flavor. And again, this is all subjective, so I'm not saying you're wrong, but just in my experience, I almost feel like part of the weird thing is that I'm getting more malt flavor. Like I feel like I'm tasting all their specialty malts, and it's mixing weirdly with like the fruit flavors from the hops, but also like the bitterness that isn't like. I feel like bitterness works a lot better in a highly carbonated beer where it's kind of like hidden.
Yes.
It's whatever. It's weird, but I would say like generally based on my experience with our blonde ale, our nitro blonde ale, and trying that, I would stray away from late hopping much at all in a nitro beer. Like,
agreed. Or if you're going to use a very
You have to use an extremely light hand because even an ounce of Crystal in a 5-gallon batch was like too much.
Yeah. Or you use a hop that doesn't have a lot of flavor like a Fugel would. So I don't know when you hop your Second Born.
Literally just first word.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We so it's like basically like 60 minute. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do something at the last end of of my stout.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense. But I don't know that's what we do in any event. So,
all right, what we got next?
That was hoppy. Next, we're gonna tackle a Hefeweizen. So we're gonna tackle a beer known for being yeast forward. Hefeweizens are basically defined by their yeast characteristic. If you've never had one,
prepare for banana and sweet.
Yeah, it's like kind of people describe it as like banana clove bubble gum is what I hear.
Yes.
It described as. And so these are also interestingly beers that are famously highly carbonated. So I don't know that like creamy and banana clash for me necessarily, but these are beers that are supposed to be highly carb. So I'm very curious. So
smell, I got a little bit. I get some clove in the smell.
I get a lot of banana.
I get some banana. I did cloves.
And this is, I guess, if you're curious, this is the Weihenstephaner Hefeweizen beer.
Yeah.
So the Weihenstephaner.
Definitely get like a little bit of banana on the taste. The carbonation is definitely there to kind of balance that flavor out.
It almost like, the carbonation is so it's really, really a part of the experience of this beer. So I'm curious. I'm almost a little disappointed to be plunging the syringe in it and ruining it. But like, to me, like my mouth kind of bubbled with carbonation for like several seconds after my sip. And that is to me a really pleasant sensation. Holy crap. Now, these Hefeweizen is a wheat beer. That was weak sauce.
That was very weak sauce.
I was trying to be careful because watching yours, Ryan's foam cap is about like as tall as the Empire State Building.
Yes, and yours
because with this being a wheat beer, there are a lot of proteins that contribute to like foam stability.
Yeah.
So yeah, like now
smell I'd say is about the same. Honestly, the smell did not change on this one.
I feel like it did a little bit. I think I would double down on. Now maybe it's just that I had already sniffed it and I had the banana in my nose still.
Maybe, yeah.
But I get a little bit less banana and a little more like graininess from the wheat malt. But I definitely am still getting mostly banana.
Oh, I get it. That flavor is definitely more prominent now.
The banana?
All of it. I think all the flavor with it, since it's been a high carbonation beer, that carbonation keeps a lot of flavor at bay. And you just got rid of it.
Yeah,
and now it's there more.
I've had beers that were over-carbonated in the bottle, and they manage to taste like nothing.
Yes.
It's weird. It's like all you get is the sensation of the carbonation in your mouth is so overpowering that sensation overrides flavor.
There was, Rich, our father-in-law, had a beer from somewhere. I forgot what it was, but they had dogs all over it, and they were all over carbonated. Whether by accident or not, we don't know. But like, you crack one open, and it just went not exploded, but like it just like a slow eruption of the stuff going over top.
Yeah, but you opened it super gently, and that would still happen.
Yes. So I wonder if doing this technique would actually save a beer like that.
That's interesting. Like if you just use the nitro technique on an over-carbonated beer, but you did it like a wuss, like I just did, in order to like just knock a little bit of it out quickly, rather than letting it sit for 20 minutes or whatever, which people say to do, but like, come on, man. I cracked this beer open. I want to drink the beer, dang it.
Yeah. I will say, and this might be heresy for anyone that loves a good heavy, I like it better nitro. Because the carbonation isn't as strong.
I can see it.
So I get a little more flavor out of it. So I still can't do a lot of it.
I don't, but I do like it. I think that this really works. So here's where my thinking goes, okay? So far. And we're going to have a conversation about beer styles that work well with nitro. But imagine this yeast using some caramel malt like in the amber ale, because I thought that caramel flavor really came forward. And then maybe a little bit of like chocolate malt or something, and trying to make sort of like a creamy Bananas Foster sort of a look in a beer.
I
Using
would
this
be okay
yeast,
with that. I would be very much okay with that.
Yeah, and that's an example where I feel like
the banana, is it the yeast that kind of brings out that banana?
The yeast is like completely responsible for
So imagine doing your second born with this yeast.
Ooh, that's interesting. We're not going to do it because Haley hates this flavor.
Shh, just don't tell her.
She hates it.
Just don't tell her.
She just,
Haley, if you're listening, you didn't hear anything.
She's extremely sensitive to this flavor because
really?
Yeah, because
so even if you nitro it, but use the Guinness stuff.
You thought that the nitro it was almost more obvious,
but with having
she just doesn't like the banana
malts,
flavor.
But the malts and everything could cover that up a little bit.
But I don't know. In my experience, like okay. You can give her a dark Belgian beer. And Belgian beers, so like Hefeweizen yeast are all about this banana clove character, right? Belgian yeast have it as part of it, but Belgian yeast are extremely complex. Yes. So I've given her ones where the particular strain, like Westmalle Abbey, for instance, like I don't taste banana at all. I get pear and I get these spices and like I don't get any banana.
Now what if
she gets it? So like she gets it and everything, and she just doesn't like it. She doesn't like banana in smoothies. She finds she just finds it
she
to
doesn't
be
like bananas.
She finds it to. It's not that she doesn't like bananas, but she finds banana to be an extremely overpowering flavor that covers up everything else. She doesn't.
I feel like that's the least flavorful thing in a smoothie, especially.
Yeah, but but yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things though. It's like if you don't like it, then you notice it. I used to not like mushrooms, and I always used to think that like even if you picked mushrooms off a pizza, it was ruined forever. And I know that's how Rich feels about peppers.
Yeah.
But now that I like mushrooms, I find that it's not that strong a flavor to me. It's a really muted flavor compared to like a pepper or something.
Yeah. No, I guess I used to hate bananas myself, but now like I like it, but like I could not point it out to you. They were, oh dear Lord, what is that?
Okay, so now
Latitude 42.
Next we'll be doing Latitude 42. This is part of their Mad Brewer series. It's a blackberry goza. So we're going to be tackling a fruited sour beer. And Haley, I'm sorry, I bought this for you coming home from a trip, and you left it in the fridge for too long. She drank the other ones.
It's like a spoiler alert after like a couple years. You have your chance.
No, it's not a couple of years. It's not a couple of years.
Well, I know.
Because that would be gross.
Yes.
But like you've had your chance, and I'm sorry. I thought we had a Flanders Red in the fridge, and we didn't, so we're doing this instead. But actually, it's interesting because I'm curious about
the color of that.
This is a really interesting beer. So like goza, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a sour style, but also commonly has sea salt added to it, just a little bit of sea salt.
Yeah, a little bit of fruitiness usually too as well.
And then
like no head here.
It's a good candidate for fruiting, but normally you fruit it with something that like lemon lime, or like something that would go with salt. Blackberry's an interesting look, and this was an interesting. I've had blackberry sours. I've had gozas.
Mm-hmm.
I've never quite had anything like this. So yeah, I do
smell blueberry a little bit.
It pours almost like I've heard like Vienna lager. You know, it's called liquid amber.
Yes.
That's what this looks like. It doesn't taste like a Vienna lager though. Now Ryan, for the record, is not a fan of sour beers.
Not this one for sure.
You don't like it? Okay.
All right. Woo.
So what flavors are you getting?
Sour? Is that a flavor?
It is a flavor. It's one of the 5 fundamental flavors.
It is on my tongue. I get a little bit of blueberry and a little bit of salt, but like it's just like a hit you in the face.
It's a pretty tart beer, yeah.
Yeah. That's hit you in the face.
I wouldn't call it quite that bad. I've definitely had. So I as a fan of sours, I like this beer. I like this beer quite a bit.
Holy foam, Batman.
Yeah, that's a decent amount of foam. So I'm curious about this because I feel like, I don't know that blueberry is really the right look, but like imagine something like peach cobbler, where like I envision that as having a fairly creamy flavor to it.
Yeah.
Or apple pie or something like that. So, or like imagine any sort of fruit dessert you would put whipped cream on.
Yeah.
And then to me, like, okay, what if you fruited, what if it was like a cherry pie sort of look, maybe tart cherry sour, and then you nitro it to make it like cherry pie with whipped cream on it. What would that look like? So I'm curious to see what this is like.
Yeah.
I will say,
smells about the same. It's like I can still smell the blueberry.
Yeah.
But it's not like,
to me,
it's
it
not
almost
more or
concentrated the blueberry smell.
Let's see if I can get beer over this foam here.
Huh. Interesting.
It's not as intense.
You think it mellowed it out?
I think the sour mellowed out a little bit, yeah.
Interesting. So for me...
mine is still mostly foam, but like I've got some beer in there.
For me, as someone who likes sours, it tastes almost the same. Like I don't get a lot of difference. And that again is interesting because certain sour styles like Flanders Red or Oud Bruin, like more classic historical styles, aren't necessarily known for being like really highly carbonated.
Yeah.
And so maybe just with the sour, you don't need it because it provides that bit of spikiness, to use that word again. That's like my word of the day, but like maybe carbonation plus sourness, because carbonation does in fact lower the pH. So it makes it more acidic.
Yeah.
Maybe this is like kind of a balancing thing where like,
because like I the flavor, I taste the sea salt. I taste the blueberry. I taste sour. That sour is just turned down a couple ticks.
Yeah?
On the
volume. You like it better?
I like this way better, actually.
Way better, okay. Like, would you say that you like it?
Yes. I could honestly say...
You could drink this, okay.
I can drink this.
So maybe if you go to a place like Jolly Pumpkin that specializes in sours, what you need to do is bring with you a syringe to just pop into their beers and take a little bit out.
taste test first. Make sure it is okay, and then if it is too sour, then just blast it. No,
It's not
I
a
do
bad
think
idea,
this is actually really good.
I will say that I do think, I don't know that I like it better because, again, I like the sensation of a highly carbonated beer.
Yeah.
I tend to like my beers on the higher end of carbonation almost always for any given style, most of the time. But unless I'm doing nitro, of course. But like this, I might agree with you that I like it a little better, or at least to me, it makes the fruit more prominent.
Yes, no, agreed.
And
it definitely brings up that blueberry more.
Yeah. And maybe that is because it's reducing the sour a little bit, because blueberries can be sour, and my favorite blueberries are sour, but like it's a berry. It's ultimately still pretty sweet as well.
Yeah. No, agreed, 100%.
Like you said, it's not sucking on a lemon.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can still taste a little lemon, to tell you the truth, but like it's not super. How many more you got left in there? You got
One.
more?
I have one
All
left.
right,
So we're gonna be going back to Weinstefaner, and we are gonna be trying their Pilsner. And I'll be honest with you, Ryan. I'm assuming I might not finish all of this because one, it's a German Pilsner, which is known for being a hoppier style of Pilsner, a more bitter style of Pilsner.
Okay.
Two, so we've done malty, hoppy, yeast forward. Yeah, I'm not going to give us a ton. And then sour. So it only makes sense to do a fairly simple beer. This was the simplest beer I had in the fridge. So
This is the simplest beer you had?
yeah, I don't have any like light beer in the fridge right now.
Okay.
But
Smells like a lager? I mean,
yeah,
nothing too crazy about it.
yeah, smells like a lager, looks like a lager.
Tastes like a lager.
It definitely has like a bite, but I actually think that's more of just a lager yeast bite more than it is. It's probably partially the bitterness. So yeah, now let's do it. What happens if you take a very simple beer? Because this, in essence, is kind of what we did with our blonde. However, we didn't use a lager yeast, and I am concerned about how that lager character will mix with flatness. Because normally I like my lagers carbonated as all heck.
Oh yeah,
You know,
Budweiser or something.
Yeah,
like that.
because you're looking for simple and refreshing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I feel like flat and luscious, which is kind of what I get from nitro, is not gonna work here. Whereas like with the blonde ale, we used the Guinness yeast to get something with a bit more character, to maybe lend a fruitiness and lend a bit more of a sense of depth. We also used a little bit of biscuit malt. This presumably is going to be simpler than that.
You just made a cream ale.
You think?
Yeah. Like it's got a creaminess to it.
Yeah, but cream ales don't necessarily have a creaminess, though, right? They're just made with corn.
They're called cream ales because they taste like a cream ale. It's creamy.
I disagree, but
Every cream ale I've had tastes a little bit of that creaminess, but not like this
right.
is a little more.
I'm
but
not
like,
gonna lie. This is not. I mean, it kind of, sort of tastes like I just forgot about a beer and came back to it an hour later.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad as I thought it would be. It's actually pretty decent.
It's actually not. Yeah,
I don't know that I would ever go out to make something like this, but it's all right.
Yeah.
It's fine. And I don't really, with this being a simple beer, I don't sense a lot of change other than just, well, I'll actually say that sort of bite, which is probably partly due to the hops. Again, I think it's partly due to just like using lager yeast. I sometimes get kind of a lager bite. People will kind of describe that. I get less bite.
Yeah.
For better or worse. I kind of like it.
And that's why I think
personally.
it's more of a cream ale.
I kind of like it personally.
I currently have a lager and a cream on tap. And like comparing the two, like the rice lager isn't super strong in your face or anything else like that. But like the cream ale, I mean, it tastes almost. I would say this is it with a little bit of a different flavor profile. But like the feel of it is this.
Yeah. I don't necessarily. I get enough lager character in this that because I just
that's why that's what I'm saying.
Recently tried your cream ale, and I do think yours is a very good example of the style. It has it's a very yummy beer. I have more than one, but there's an essential cream ale-ness that this doesn't have.
Yeah.
And I even said while we were there, I compared it to Dragon Meat's Lancelot cream ale, and I was like, I don't know what it is, but cream ales have a thing that this has and Lancelot's has. And it's like, whatever Lancelot's has, your beer has that quality and it's very good and I like it. This doesn't have that. So I don't know that I would call it a cream ale, but it is.
No, it's not got creaminess to it, which is what I would say. Okay. And I think it comes down to the different flavor profiles that you're using as well. So like with my cream ale, it's you're using 2-row for your bulk, you're using a little bit like a pound of flake maize for 3-gallon batch, so probably a little more for a 5-gallon batch. And then I'm using very basic hops as well. So it's Cluster, Golding, and Fugel. So I think with this beer, you get a little more of the bite that a lager still has. You're still getting that, but it's still
mellowed quite a bit.
Yeah. Like it's not as intense. I like it. I like it a lot, actually.
And I would say maybe as we're sort of transitioning into our kind of wrap-up phase, mellow...
I think mellow is the word that nitro does. Yeah.
And that's one of the best things about Guinness. That's like when we say, like people assume Guinness is really intense. In fact, it's very mellow. Or like, that is it. It's like, I think the nitro is a big part of that. The fact that it's like, like less than 4.5 ABV is also part
now, if you had
of
a regular stout, so like an oatmeal stout or something like that, yes, that's going to hit you, that's going to fill you, that's going to do everything. But I do Guinness is not going to do that.
I do wonder, though, okay, that's an interesting question. So take a 10% stout, like a Russian Imperial or something with really intense flavor, and nitro that, it probably still mellows the flavor out a bit, though, right?
Do you have one by chance?
I have a room temperature Larry's Last from Bell's.
I don't want to take.
I don't think we want to do it.
I don't know if we want to do one.
We don't want to do it.
That's a true Guinness right there for the record. Doing room temp. But
that'd be a heck of a comparison to like. I should have thought. Actually, here, check my fridge. Do I have any Larry's Last in there?
Let's see. No.
All right. Well,
you got Dream No More, Belgian strong ale.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, I mean, if you don't see Larry Bell down there, then. It's not in there. Yeah. I thought I moved another one into the fridge, but that's too bad. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that it would, and I think it would mellow it. I think the sense of creaminess does that, and I think also that creaminess seems to accentuate flavors that pair well with creaminess. So like we talked about caramel becoming more apparent. We talked about banana possibly becoming more apparent. We talked about blackberry becoming more apparent against the background of sourness.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's just something. It's like assume mellow, creamy, and then like kind of go with what flavors are going to match that.
Now, question for you, and this is me just not knowing. You probably know it because you do it. So when you do a Guinness style, like what you did with the Second Born, when you brew it, you get the ABV of 5 or 4.5-ish, whatever you're at right now.
Ours is a 4.3.
4.3. Is the ABV affected by nitronizing it compared to carbonizing? Okay, I didn't know if that would bring it down a little bit, or maybe
no.
Like I don't know. I didn't know that was a thing.
No, it's not, because like I mean, ultimately the liquid you're consuming is still liquid. The ABV is going to stay the same in there. Okay. The only thing that might change is just whatever. If the foam cap's bigger, you might get a slightly smaller pour, which is going to affect how much you're imbibing. How much you're drinking,
yes.
Yeah. So that's maybe an interesting thing is like, that there's this whole craft beer versus like light beer thing where it's like a Bud Light drinker is going to want no foam, his beer poured up to the top of the pint glass.
Yes.
Whereas like a craft beer drinker,
you want a little
maybe
bit.
Going to want
a little
nice foam head, right? And like they're going to be like me, and they're going to be a nerd about watching the lacing or whatever, like possibly. But with a nitro beer, I feel like it's essential. Like I said, I've said it multiple times now. I think if you don't have any foam, there's no point to doing nitro. Just like pour flat beer. I agree that far.
So we are like an hour and 15, hour and a half into this since we started recording. So about an hour, we'll say. The Pepsi Nitro still has a little bit of head on top. Not much.
Yeah, they're probably like 5 millimeters or something.
Sure, we'll go with 5 millimeters. But it's like when you pour, like you said, when you pour regular soda, it goes away. It's flat. It's flat on top. There's no head on top.
Yeah.
But this is still holding.
It still has a very reasonable. Yeah. So it's interesting. It is really very interesting. So, what? Okay, let's brainstorm here.
Okay.
You've talked about in the past having Neapolitan stout on nitro, and that just makes so much sense because it's based on an ice cream.
Yes.
Cream is literally part of the name, right? Like, of course that would work amazingly. I've also had a strawberry blonde ale on nitro that was excellent for the same reasons, where it was like it was like this strawberry ice cream, strawberry shortcake sort of quality.
Yeah.
What other things can you think of? What other styles that you think would lend themselves, or just like ideas for a beer that you could serve on nitro that would lean into that the sense of like creaminess, the sense of smoothness?
So I have a couple actually. So we did talk about earlier doing a NEPA. I think a NEPA, almost like an orange creamsicle would come about.
I mean, a lot of people try and formulate, like there's this whole milkshake stout thing.
Yes.
I'll be honest, I've avoided buying one like the plague. I've literally never tried one, except for that. The closest thing would be that eggnog IPA we tried that was dumpingly disgusting. Yeah, it was awful. But I could see it working. Yeah, like you because the hop bitterness seemed to be the thing. We were still getting the fruit quality, but it was the bitterness that really seemed to clash with the creaminess. There
are styles out there that are IPA milk stouts or something like that.
Right.
Where like they do put lactose in your IPAs.
Yeah, I hate it.
I haven't had one, tell you the truth.
The eggnog one. Did you try the eggnog one?
I did not try the eggnog one.
Okay, yeah.
I knew better.
Well, we tried to get you, and you wouldn't be.
I hate eggnog.
I think that's basically
so.
how they did it. It was like they used lactose, and then
So I wonder, like, if I know that's a thing. I know there's a few people I follow in social media that blatantly say lactose in their IPA is just the weirdest thing in the world. But I think this would be a kind of a step down where you are still getting that creaminess in IPA without getting like too much with it.
Well, or if you're using lactose and you're trying to go for milkshake, go nitro.
Yeah.
Maybe it would accentuate it. Like I said, the Left Hand's Nitro Milk Stout is one of the few examples of lactose. I said the only, but you are right that shortened stout's very good. Also, Vanilla Java Porter by Atwater Brewery is really good. That has lactose in it.
Yep.
So I think it mixes well with like coffee and chocolate flavors.
Yeah, so you have the right flavors.
I'm sure I've had stouts that I didn't know had lactose in it, but like for lighter beers, generally I don't like it.
No,
I had
I can agree
cream
with you
ale
on that.
once with lactose in it because they were trying to lean into the cream
too much. Yeah.
And it was awful.
Now I want to switch it to homebrewing a little bit. So beers that I make that I would like to see nitro. We talked about this doing short and stout.
Okay. I just want to lean in on that a little bit though.
Okay.
So like Earl Grey tea and English breakfast tea are often served with cream and sugar, right? So yeah, I think it could really work.
Yes. Because
like it would basically just be like adding a touch of cream to your tea. Like I think that would be
We're doing that this year. I'm going to give you some of mine.
We're doing it.
Before I carbonate it, I'm going to give you like a gallon or two of it, and you're going to do your magic.
We'll make sure the nitro space is free, and we'll get it on, and we'll have it on tap for Hop a Day. It'll be great. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll drink all of it.
All of it. I mean, we usually do, but But the other ones I probably do would be the Dude. I think the Dude would be very good. Nitro Nice as well.
So coffee blonde ale.
Yeah, coffee blonde ale with flavors in it. Yeah, I think that would work. I think that would perfectly. Be great.
Well, actually, you say that, but like the Dude has a little bit of toasted coconut in it, right?
A little bit, yeah.
So coconut cream, again, another classic flavor combination. I think that really pairs well.
And it's got the white chocolate, which is obviously goes with creaminess as well. Other ones that I do, like I think the cucumber Kolsch is out. I think.
Oh yeah, gross.
I have not. I'm going to try it this year, but I'm doing a spiced chai latte.
That would definitely.
That would be great
because again, it's the latte. It'll put the latte in chai latte. Yeah.
Now the one that I think I'd be willing to try, but I don't think it's going to work out, would be the Goron Spice, which is my peppered ale.
Interesting, creamy peppers.
Creamy pepper.
I don't know how I feel. I don't.
But it's got the biscuit malts in it, so it might work.
That's
with it.
true. Yeah, because it is a very malty beer. Like you balance it really.
You just get a little bit of spice at the end.
Yeah.
It could be good. It could be bad.
Maybe we should try the syringe trick on it.
I might. I'm actually. when this episode comes out, I'm probably going to be on TikTok a lot, just like pulling all the beers that I have. I'm like, what does this taste like? Nitronized.
Yeah. Hey, dude. Yeah, maybe you could start something.
Start the trend.
Yeah, you could start it happening.
There you go.
So another one I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are your home brews that you want to do?
So I don't know how many we have already done that I would like to see nitrogenized, to be honest. Like, I think the second born to me is way better on nitro than it is not.
What about your you have
I thought firstborn was pretty good.
Firstborn was pretty good, yeah.
That was surprisingly good.
What's the grapefruit diet? The grapefruit diet I think might work.
Oh yeah, that's like a grapefruit cream ale. That would be interesting.
That would be a good one, I think.
Now like the little tartness, the tart brightness from the grapefruit to me would like clash a little bit with the.
It could mellow it out.
To me, like tart, bright flavors pair, or at least they lean into like the same sort of acidity as carbonation. So I would think I would want that one nice and spritzy, but it'd be interesting to try. It wouldn't hurt to try the nitro.
I'm about to say, with how many syringes, I got this when we did the seminar stuff with Myth Boosters
That'll
too.
be the next beer we brew, most likely. One thing I've always wanted to try. So we've now made a nitro blonde, which was decent. We need to refine the recipe a little bit. A stout, which was great. I would like to make a sort of amber ale style beer, but really lean into s'more flavors, basically. So like lean into chocolate hard, and then there are a couple of we use Mecca Grade Estate malts that's where we get our Vienna and our Munich malt from, and their Munich malt, they say, and I agree, tastes like, they call it like liquid graham cracker. And then they also have these basically really highly kilned base malts. There's like one that's 22L and 44L or whatever, and they call it like Opal 22 and Opal 44. And they are described as being like, one of them is like, I think at least one of the two is like graham cocoa. But, but it's like, so I want to take specialty malts that'll give the impression of graham cracker and chocolate. And then I want to nitrogenize it to be like basically represent the marshmallow. Yeah, and just see whether we could make one that just tastes like a s'more without. It would be you could add to it. Right?
I would say without doing the cocoa, extra ingredients.
You could add whatever else, like maybe you could add some lactose to give the marshmallow sensation. But I would just love to see how close we could get with none of that.
Yeah.
Just like go for, can we make liquid marshmallow that is or liquid s'more that is a 4-ingredient beer? Yeah. I think that would be awesome.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be a great experiment to try and figure out.
I'd like to see. I think it could be good.
Well, I think we're just about done.
I think we've explored this pretty darn thoroughly.
I mean, we can pull more beers out and try and see what they do, but I feel like we'd be here all day.
You got to get home at some point.
I do have to go home. And I'm trying to count my beers, so I'm trying to lose a little LBs here. And I'm getting close to my account. And
it's probably good that the season's almost done then, right?
Yes.
Well, okay. So with that in mind, if you would like to find us to comment about this or other episodes of our podcast, you can find us at Brewthers-In-Law on Twitter. That's all one word. Or brewthers-in-law.com, where you'll find more information about our episodes. Ryan, where else can people find you online?
So I'm on TikTok, probably mainly now at this point, which seems weird, but it is me.
You, young.
I know. I'm so hot right now. The hot thing.
So hot right now.
So I'm out there at Wise Old Owls Brew, and I do a lot of beer related things, or just beer and general related things, funny videos, stuff like that. Me chugging beers, which is hard sometimes. I'm not quite as in shape as I used to be.
You're not in shape.
Yes.
That's how, talking about losing LBs. I'm not in shape for chugging anymore.
No, I'm not. So I'm also on Twitter at Rambo Kuhn. That's RAMBOKUHN. And also Wise Old Owls Brew as well there. So, and we only have one episode left after this. This is the second to the last episode.
Oh boy.
I know. And then season 3.
Season flew by.
I know.
So weird.
It honestly, it seems like it was only really a few days ago we did the beach beers.
I know, yeah, right. But it wasn't.
But it obviously wasn't, because it's been so
It's not
cold.
even the same year.
It's not even the same year or the same weather.
Speaking of which, Ryan and I, peek behind the curtain, will be hanging out for a little while longer after we record this, and we'll be brainstorming ideas about our third season. If you have any good ideas, if you have stuff you would like to see covered, new episode formats you'd like us to try, or just ideas within the episode formats we've already done.
If you got a brewery that you want us to try, we will do our best to find that brewery and get some beer for us to try and do some research on it too.
Or a beer style.
Or beer style, yeah.
Or if you have an idea you'd like us to test in Myth Brewsters, we would love if you would send us those ideas, because, first of all, it's hard to come up with podcast ideas all the time.
Oh, we got plenty of ideas.
Yeah, you're right.
We probably got at least 2 more seasons on our own.
Okay, well, with that said, we would love to do ideas that interest the people that listen to the podcast. Yeah. So absolutely, let us know. Hit us up.
Yes.
And we'll try and find a way to incorporate those suggestions into our upcoming.
Absolutely, yes. But I think, so if you have any comments, anything you want to talk about, obviously you can reach us out on Twitter or any of our other social medias. But you can also leave some comments on Apple. You can leave it on Google. You can leave it on YouTube. Wherever you listen to your podcasts, we are there. And you can rate us. Make sure you give us 5 stars, because we know we're this awesome.
You can rate us, but only if you give us full marks.
Yes. Leave a comment on how you feel about the podcast itself. It helps us with algorithms, so we get out there more and more. We'll definitely be we do have a collab coming up soon. Next episode with Turn by Turn. You did not have much left in that one. As Mike pours the last little bit of a beer, he had it.
It's a Hefeweizen too, so it's just all like
all the yeast and everything.
I'm not going to touch that.
But definitely help us out with the algorithms, and we'll definitely be doing more collaborative episodes. So if you want to do an episode, like you're a group or something, if you're another podcast, definitely let us know as well. But we'll leave it to the last episode, which will come in 2 weeks. Till then, as we always say, I'm going to say no camera work.
Cheers.
Cheers.